Greetings everyone! Welcome to the Sonic the Hedgehog issue 13 review. Let's briefly talk about my favorite 2D Sonic game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now why is it my favorite? I can make a video on that alone, but here are my top 3 reasons. Excellent gameplay mechanics, a save feature so you can continue where you left off, and it contains one of the easiest special stages in Sonic history. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, the first half of issue 13 is actually a very loose adaptation of the first half of this game, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. We begin with Sonic and Tails tracking Robotnik's hovercraft when they discover an island in the sky. They speculate whether or not a Chaos Emerald keeps the island in the air while a spiked glove individual watches their approach. Deciding they're intruders, he rolls out the Unwelcome Mat, which is in the form of a punching missile holding an unwelcome mat. Sonic and Tails escape just as their plane crashes. The two wander around while deciding their next move until they come under attack by a batter blimp. Well, that's what Tails calls it at least. Now, I would have gone by the name Fire Breath myself, but the writers probably didn't know its true name. Suddenly, a shield pops out around Sonic. Okay. They dive into the water, and suddenly they're in Hydro City. Oh, and Sonic lost his shield. The two are dragged along the currents, and in their efforts to fight it, they pass out. The two wake up, tied up and in a dark room. With a voice threatening them, our heroes mention that it does not belong to Robotnik. And so, emerging from the shadows is Knuckles, last of the Echidnas and guardian of the floating island's Chaos Emerald. Robotnik watches the confrontation on his monitor and exposits his plan to steal the island's emerald. And we learn that Knuckles and Robotnik are in cahoots. But Knuckles has his own honor code and gives Sonic and Tails 10 minutes to leave the island, or else. The two of them leave and, wait a minute, that cave belonged to Batman? Moving on, the two use this chance to prove that Knuckles' new friend is a douche. Speaking of, Robotnik yells at Knuckles for letting them go. Knuckles says that he has things under control and ends the transmission. Robotnik's naturally upset about this, but changes his tune when his robotic minions present the Chaos Emerald. Knuckles follows Sonic and Tails, and when he realizes they're heading for the Chaos Emerald, he takes a shortcut, only to find the Chaos Emerald gone. Since Sonic and Tails arrived just after he did, the Echidna starts putting 2 and 2 together. Robotnik prepares to leave with his prize. And yes, folks, I realize what Crabmeat is saying. I'll make note of it in the comments. Robotnik's victory is literally snatched away as our heroes got the Chaos Emerald back. Robotnik summons his SWAT bots to stop the heroes, but they wind up getting trashed. The engines start and the trio exits the hovercraft before it skips along the water? Okay, 2 things. 1. I kinda glanced over the fact that Robotnik's hovercraft was damaged, and that's one of the reasons he needed the Chaos Emerald. And 2, the designs of this craft don't match. When you see Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles leave, it almost looks like a plane. But when you see the craft leaving the island, it looks like a Robotnik-faced rocket. I know it's the Goofy era, but there still has to be some consistency here, so I'm stamping this as a continuity flub. Anyway, with the threat past, Sonic and Tails wonder how are they going to get off the island themselves. Knuckles reveals that he's gathered all the parts of their plane while they were passed out. Sonic easily puts the plane back together because back then it was made out of Lego bricks. As Knuckles sees them off, he comments that this won't be the last time he'll see those guys. Oh, Knuckles, if you only knew what was in store for you back then. This story was written by Mike Kantarovich, and apologies if I mispronounced that last name there, and it was co-written by Ken Penders. I'm not touching that hornet's nest, folks, though I am assuming Mike did the majority of the work. Anyway, as stated earlier, this is a loose adaptation of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I'm not that upset about it. You have to understand, folks, that this comic was made back in the early 90s. Primary communications back then involved either a phone or mail. No internet back then, folks. I can buy that Sega didn't give the staff every detail of the game, plus the comics are ultimately promotional material for the games. So I can see kids picking up this issue and might get interested in playing the game. Now there are some references to Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Besides the obvious floating island, we have Angel Island Zone, with the aforementioned Fire Breath and Monkey Dude here. Yes, that's its name. I looked it up. The shield that briefly appeared is more like the Sonic 1 and 2 shield because I didn't see any fire or electricity surrounding him, and if it was the bubble shield, it wouldn't have disappeared as soon as he entered the water. Which leads us to the brief appearance of Hydro City Zone, specifically the section where you get blown away in the water. The only other thing that's game relatable is Knuckles and Robotnik teaming up to stop Sonic. There are different reasons for the alliance based on the medium. In the game, the Death Egg crashed on the island and the Mad Doctor tricked Knuckles to help him fend off Sonic. Plus, at least he had a semi-trustworthy face. In the comic, Robotnik had hovercraft trouble, and Knuckles couldn't sense anything sinister about this guy. Look at him! This screams bad guy! For your first comic appearance, Knuckles, you acted like an idiot.
Shut up!
To be fair, he was tricked in the game, and when he caught on, he immediately helped rectify the situation. A Chaos Emerald keeping the floating island in the air. I can buy it. At this point in the comic's history, Chaos Emeralds were hidden everywhere on Mobius. Not to mention that they have untold powers. It'll take Sonic and Knuckles the game to establish the Master Emerald, and the comic will debut the Master Emerald in issue 56. The art's done by Dave Manick. If you've seen my Sonic Sabrina crossover review, I've briefly talked about him in that video. Here, we are dealing with early Manick, and while it's decent for the most part, it's still a bit angular. You'll notice it more when you look at the heads. In the end, I'm giving this story a 7. Before you light those torches and sharpen the pitchforks, I'm only judging the story the writers produce here, not the writers themselves. Overall, the story is enjoyable, but I'm not that fond of the 2 Batman references here. Let's move on to the next story. We start the story with Sonic using his spin dash to carve a statue for Antoine. And yes, I'm showing this panel of Tails pointing out that Sonic can shape certain materials into statues within seconds. Plot point, Sally and Rotor's arrival caused Sonic to mess up the statue, but there are more important things to worry about. Sally received word that Robotnik built an orbiting space weapon called the Robo-Storm, which can roboticize any living creature within a 100-yard radius. By the way, they got part of the intel thanks to Robotnik's bragging. That guy's got an ego. And here's the proof right here. Sonic gets rid of the SWAT bots, allowing the rest of the team to board the Robo-Storm. While trying to sabotage the machine, the group spots Robotnik and Snively approaching them. Robotnik's so joyful at the prospect of taking over the world, but Snively ruins the mood by pointing out that the doors open and that the guards are gone. The Freedom Fighters escape by launching Robo-Storm, and now they're in space. Robotnik and Snively pursue, and Robotnik orders Snively to blast Robo-Storm because he couldn't bear to ruin something with his face on it. Once again, this guy has one heck of an ego. The blast drains Robo-Storm's power, and Robotnik contacts them with an ultimatum. Return with him and be roboticized, or die in the cold of space. Fortunately, there's some reserve power left in Robo-Storm, not enough to return to Mobius, but land on one of its various moons. However, they don't have enough power for a soft landing, and so they splat? Yes, according to Rotor, they landed on the legendary moon Muckery, because of its mucky surface, you see. Robotnik lands, and instead of being stuck like Robo-Storm, it transforms into an armless robot. He asks Snively to kick Robo-Storm because, again, he can't stand seeing something with his face getting wrecked. It turned out to be a waste of time since the Freedom Fighters vacated Robo-Storm some time ago. If you're wondering how they're surviving without spacesuits, it said earlier that there's air, but it's thin. Robotnik rolls out a tank to deal with the Freedom Fighters. So how will the situation get resolved? If you've actually been paying attention to this story, then you should remember that Robotnik's a bit veiny, plus Sonic can create statues in seconds out of various materials, including the mucky surface of Muckery. And thus, Sonic creates a giant statue of Robotnik out of the mucky material. Naturally, Robotnik's distracted by the statue until the statue falls right on top of him. As Robotnik and Snively deal with this mess, our heroes escape. The story ends with the Freedom Fighters back home and Rotor serving them a mushy breakfast. Their faces here really sell their feelings here. This story was written by Angelo De Cesar. He wrote a decent amount of early Sonic stories, so we'll see more of his work in the future when I tackle more of the early issues. Besides the title, I actually enjoyed this story. It's a one and done about our hero stopping Robotnik from trying to take over the world with a super weapon, getting into some trouble, and heading on home. Elements like Sonic's artistic skills and Robotnik's vanity actually flow together when the heroes need a distraction to escape the mucky moon. Now, I might as well cover this since this will be brought up in the comments section, and warning, spoilers. Mobius in the old continuity is a post-apocalyptic Earth. So where did all these moons come from? Well, according to the Sonic Comic Encyclopedia, the Overlanders, or mutated aggressive humans, built many moon-like structures, including the Ark from Sonic Adventure 2. So yeah, the art's done by Art Ma Winnie, or is it pronounced Ma Winey? Anyway, this art style works for this early stage of the comic. For the record, Art was a storyboard artist for Sonic SatAM, so the designs between the cartoon and his work look similar. I'm giving the story an 8. The story has a sense of urgency, but at the same time, it's fun. Kinda like how the comics are today. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, have a good day, and be safe.